Yeah, there we go. That's a very important thing. Caroline Day, Muriel Dalland, great. Gordon Berry, Donna, hi Donna. Stefan Huser is in the back of a car again. Good man. You're moving around the place. Yeah, so still got 10 people waiting in the waiting room. So 6 people wait. Pippa, how are you? You had fun at the Dorchester yesterday.
We had a brilliant time, an amazing sunset.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Elmer.
Hi, David.
Hey, how you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Good. I think I just saw that Phil Atkinson was on the line. I can't see everybody because I can only see, I think it's 64 people on my screen. And I know there's more of you on than that, but so welcome. Yvonne Roach. Hi, Yvonne. But the image doesn't look like Yvonne. There we go. Oh, you're over there. Okay, I got you now, Yvonne. Yeah, there's this. I was looking at Yvonne, and it said Yvonne Roach, and there's this bloke there. And I'm going like, no, that's not the way I remember Yvonne. So yeah. So can you believe this? Week 9. 9 weeks on perception is projection. I don't think, as I said before, anybody's ever done this before. And actually, when I first conceived of the idea, I didn't know if I could. I didn't know if I got enough content, enough to talk about for that amount of time. But anyway, I proved myself wrong. So there we go. And I said right at the start that this would be probably one of the most contentious masterclasses ever on perceptions projections, because a lot of people disagree with it. Whatever. That's just their projection. And then this one is your body is your projection, which probably is going to get. It's probably, yeah, Adrian's going like, yo. It's probably going to be one of the most contentious ones. And I'm going to share with you some of my experiences over the last 29, 30 years around this. And we'll see where we go with that. So what do you project onto your body? Well, ultimately, it's your internal representation. So your internal representation from an NLP point of view is your internal representation of your body, whether that be visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory, whatever it may be. Now, your body has a physical mass, which might mean that not necessarily your internal representation becomes your body immediately, though there are some anomalies to that would suggest that that is in of itself what we might call a limiting belief. If you looked at body dysmorphia, if you look at an extreme example like anorexia, and I've been pulling out books from my library this afternoon when I've been putting together the thing for today, because people have been saying, what books would you recommend? A great book around this is Stephen Walensky's book, Trans as People Live.
Isn't that more like it?
Isn't what? Someone just said something. I don't know what they actually said, but there we go. Trans as People Live, Stephen Walensky, talks about the fact that we live our life through hypnotic phenomena, whether we're in a trance or not. And so, if you looked at, as an example, anorexia, then what somebody is doing is they look in the mirror and they see a fat person. But in actual fact, they might be, absolute skin and bone. So from a hypnotic phenomena point of view, what is that? Well, it's a negative hallucination of the way your body is now, and a positive hallucination of your projection on your body, your perception on your body. I've done demonstrations, particularly on hypnosis trainers training, which we've got coming up in August, where I've had people have their body disappear. I've had people have my body disappear. And then, I'm holding a glass of water, and this glass of water is moving around the table or the stage without any hand. One of the things I had to realize was that you also had to have people negatively hallucinate your clothes, otherwise your clothes disappear and you don't. But which then requires people to have a lot of therapy. But these are examples of projection. If you can have somebody imagine or project that a tennis ball is there when it's not actually there, then what else can you do? And, I had a client a good few years ago now. She came to work with me around rheumatoid arthritis. And we got to the root cause, we got to the linchpin, limiting belief, limiting decision. And she said, I'm not a good person. And I thought, well, okay, so you're telling me what you're not, but you're not telling me who you are, who or what you are. So I said, well, so who or what are you that's not a good person? And she literally recoiled at this point in time. She went, I'm the devil. And I went, cool. She later said I was the only person she could ever imagine that would say that if somebody announced themselves as being the devil, their response would be cool. And she said, no, you don't understand. When you asked me that question, the picture that came up in my mind was of the old crone, a lady that's the fingers are like this, toes are like that, hunchback, bent over, and curled nose. And she said, that's the picture that came up in my mind, and that's the picture my unconscious mind is using to create my body. I am becoming the old crone. My fingers are like that. My toes are like that. My shoulders are like that. And we took out that limiting decision. And she's a friend of mine on Facebook still, so I'm not going to mention her name. And as a result, I mean, she sent me an email saying that a consultant said, your rheumatoid arthritis seems to have burnt itself out and completely disappeared. So that's an example directly of internal representation becoming the physical representation of your body, which is a projection. So whatever your internal representation of your body is, your body will become that sooner or later. Now, I've got some notes here. So if we were to look at the work of Michael Talbot, Holographic Universe, then the whole thing about the body following the internal representation taking time might actually be able to blow that idea out, to be honest. Because Michael Talbot talks about research which is done in his book Holographic Universe, and he talks about the impact of multiple personality disorder on a person's physical body. So with a multiple personality disorder, what's really changing from an NLP point of view is the person's internal representation, what is being transmitted through the person's body. And there are cases where, these are documented cases, you can check the book, you can check the references, where one personality might have blue eyes, the other personality has brown eyes. And the moment the personality shifts, the person's eyes change color. There are people who are type 1 diabetic in one personality and not in the other. And they take blood samples before and then immediately after the personality shifts, and the blood chemistry is totally different. This is stuff that, you know, Deepak Chopra was talking about a long time ago in quantum healing. Then you've got Candace Pert with Molecules of Emotion talking about, and then more recently, Bruce Lipton, Biology of Belief. People have been saying, what books would you recommend reading? These are all books I'd recommend reading. Where that our thinking actually shifts our physical body quite often very, very rapidly. You got a case again with multiple personality disorder with somebody that was allergic to orange juice, and having drunk orange juice would have hives come up on their skin. And if the personality that was allergic to orange juice was running the body, and they had orange juice, then hives would appear immediately. But as soon as the other personality that wasn't allergic to orange juice took over the body, the hives disappeared instantaneously, and vice versa. So if the personality was running the body that didn't have an allergy to orange juice, drank orange juice, no problem. As soon as the other personality took over, hives appeared on the skin instantaneously. Now, there was a hypnotist in the 1890s, early 1800s, Pierre Janet, and he did some fairly interesting experiments, which we wouldn't be allowed to do these days with hypnosis, where he would touch the person on the arm with a soldering iron. So it's probably what, about 800 degrees Fahrenheit, something like that, and told them that he was touching them on the arm with a pencil. When he did that, they felt no pain and there was no blister. Then he told them he was touching them on the arm with a pencil. With a pencil, but told him he was touching him on the arm with a soldering iron. Wow! Immediately they felt pain and a blister came up. This is all about projection and perception on our body. I had an experience of this when I was out in Hawaii teaching Huna many, many years ago, when one of the coaching assistants, I was doing my usual thing, fixing radios, and the aerial had fallen off one of the radio packs. And I thought, well, I can fix that during a break. Got my soldering iron out, because you always have a soldering iron with you. And resoldered the aerial back onto the body pack, put the soldering iron off to the side, and one of the coaching assistants picked up the soldering iron. Obviously, she'd never seen one before, from the wrong end. Now, I can hear this, like, I'm thinking, that's interesting. I can smell this smell. I'm thinking, oh, we're having Kailua pork tonight at the buffet. And then she goes like, ah. And I realized what she's done. She's picked up the soldering iron. So the first thing I did was not allow her to look at her hand, and immediately put it into a bucket of cold water, iced water, which I got on the stage, and immediately changed her internal representation by using timeline therapy and Huna and whatever other techniques I got to hand. Then asked her unconscious mind to heal it up. Kept her hand in the ice bucket until she could take it out of there without it feeling hot, which did take a while, took about 20, 25 minutes, something like that. One of the other coaching assistants came over and went like, oh, can I have a look? She looked at it, she goes like, oh, David, I went like, go away. Actually, I wasn't that polite. Go away, because I didn't want any negative suggestions about what had happened. And the result actually surprised me, because the next day, less than 24 hours later, she came up to me and said, look at my hand. And I said to her, okay, very good. Now show me the hand you picked up the soldering iron with. She goes, this is the hand I picked up the soldering iron with. I went like, ah, ha, ha, very funny. Ha, 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 very, very, very funny. Now show me the hand you picked up the soldering iron with. She goes, this is the one I picked up the soldering iron with. And I was the doubting Thomas, right? Not the other person. And I said, okay, show me both hands. And she went, both hands, not a mark on either. And one hand that she'd actually picked up the soldering iron with, obviously was burned. And then, but the interesting thing that I got from this was a book. I'm not trying to pull it off my bookshelves now, called Rapid Induction Hypnosis by Arnold Furst, F-U-R-S-T. Arnold Furst was a stage hypnotist. And he was working, he took this voluntary job in A&E. And he realized that people, when they came in to A&E, were already in shock. And you don't need to do a trance induction. You just go sleep. That's not a suggestion for you guys, by the way. There you go, Adrian. And then they wouldn't need anesthetics. They wouldn't need anything like that. And what he discovered was that he worked for a while in the burns unit, where people coming in with first, second, third degree burns. And quite often with people with burns, they can't actually have anesthetics. So they're in huge amounts of pain. And he would just go to them, okay, sleep, and then give them a suggestion for healing up the skin. And he said that what they would do is they heal up the skin, very, very quickly with no scarring. And I took that belief and that worked with the coaching assistant. I've done that with a number of other people. I had another number of other people come to me and say that they did the same thing, even though they weren't aware that they were doing it. So this is all to do with projection. Now, very, very well researched are the placebo and the nocebo effect. Placebo is when somebody gets well for no actual physical, scientific, validated reason. And nocebo is when somebody gets ill for no valid physical reason. And a couple of books I would recommend on this particular topic. One would be Sorcery by Hurley J. Finley. And actually, I'd managed to find this as a free download PDF. So what I'll do is I'll put that into the community so that if it's still available, I can get that to you. I've got a physical copy, but I can't. I couldn't find it this afternoon out of all the books I've got. That book is great, and it's very anecdotal. It's a book about people that became well as a result of being given a suggestion. And when I say being given a suggestion, what I mean by that is they were given a suggestion, they created an internal representation of being well, and then their body follows suit. It's also a great book about anecdotal evidence of nocebo effect, which is where people get ill for no physical, valid, scientific reason, and include actually dying. Where in actual fact there was actually no reason for them to do that. The book says it's as a result of suggestion. Yes, okay, we can look at it that way, but if you look at it from a perceptions projection point of view, then as a result of a suggestion, the person changes their internal representation of their body. And as a result, their body then changes in accordance with the internal representation. And quite often, very, very rapidly, even quicker than the time frames suggested by Deepak Chopra in his book Quantum Healing. I love the book Sorcery. I'll put that link in for you. My business partner, James, because he likes scientific validation, prefers this book, Suggestible You, by Eric Vance, which I actually think is a rewrite of Sorcery, but with kind of like scientific papers validation as to, but the you know, the result is the same. We change our internal representation, and our body will change. In some ways, it will actually change at a speed that defies medical science. So yeah, your body is your projection. Do we have any questions about any of that? I'm going to pull up my oh wow. So Lior asked the question, is that how placebos work? Yes, Lior. And also how nocebos work too. You know, as a result of doing NLP trainings for the last 29 years, I've had a lot of medical doctors come and do practitioner, master practitioner training, even trainers training. And there's a certain point where many of them go, oh no, and they go into a really not good place. Because they go, I've just realized that I've been giving people death sentences. I've been telling people that they've got a certain life expectancy. And then they live that life expectancy. And I've just realized that's because I told them that's what to expect. I like a story in Michael Talbot's book. There's an old lady. She was probably about late 70s. She'd fallen over. She got some balance problems, and she was diagnosed as having a brain tumor, which the surgeon debunked, which means they've taken out as much of it as they can. But essentially, as far as the doctor was concerned, they sent her home. This was Dr. Eckerberg, I think it was, if I remember the name correctly, and sent her home to die. But the lady thought that since she'd had surgery, that was it. She didn't know that she was supposed to die. And the doctor bumped into the lady 10 years later. I mean, the doctor basically thought that she got 3 to 6 months to live. Bumped into the lady in the street 10 years later and said, you know, how are you? And she said, well, I'm fine. She said, I still go dancing a couple of times a week. I have to use a walking stick now to walk. But other than that, I'm okay. And she just didn't know that she was supposed to die. So she didn't. There's a great example of projection. You know, another book, which I think is a great book, is Timeless Mind, Ageless Body by Deepak Chopra. And one thing in common that these people who are the oldest, taken as being the oldest people in the world have in common is they actually don't know how old they are. They don't know what their date of birth is. So they don't know how old they are. So therefore, they have no expectation as to what to project onto their body. All great examples of these kind of things. Just looking now at the questions. If someone's lactose intolerant. Tara, if someone is lactose intolerant, can you safely help the body become tolerant again? Yes, Tara. Though I do, you know, and obviously this is my, oops, just banged the microphone. This is my perception. This is my projection. So hands up for that. I think there are certain things that the human body isn't actually designed to ingest, which would be cow's milk for one thing, and also probably grains. But yes, in answer to your question, yes, it would be able to do that. Tara, again, what would you suggest for a group exercise or program to help a group change their internal representations of their health? fix your mind seminar, quite honestly. I can't give you a 2-minute answer to that question. Essentially, the delegates would need to let go of their negative emotions, limiting beliefs, align their health and fitness values, potentially their values for living. Liz Martin, do you mean all illness is due to projections? That sort of thing. Liz Martin, do you mean all illness is due to projections? That's hard to believe, but I guess that's what you mean. Well, that's a good projection, Liz. I don't actually think that all illness is as a result of our projections. I think there are other potential causes, which we can go into in maybe another bastard class. Injury is another potential cause. Poisoning is another potential cause. And malnutrition would be another potential cause. And there's a lot of that around. So no, I mean, sorcery actually talks about that. Sorcery talks about a case where somebody drank something that they believed was later then led to believe was a poison, and they died, but in actual fact it wasn't a poison. So I think we got to look at this from a realistic point of view. Is it then possible for somebody to drink something that's actually poisonous that they don't believe is and live? Yeah, there are cases of that too. But I think from a health point of view, I think it's important that we look at everything. Ian Clark, how easy is it to change our perception? Use what tool? We talked about that, Ian, in I think it was session 7. If you want to look at the replay of that, Ian, we talked about that in detail as to what tools we could use to change our projections. Magdalena, yeah, this is a really good. It seems that an important fact was with your assistant injury that no others saw the wound. Can you comment on that? It wasn't so much that anybody else saw the wound. I didn't want the coaching assistant to see it. And then it wasn't so much that other people saw it, but I was more concerned about what they might say, about what their suggestion might be. And so the other coaching assistant saw it, and she was literally about to say, wow, David, that's really bad. She needs to go to the hospital, whatever. And I didn't want that to be put in as a suggestion with a person that was in a hyper-suggestible state called shock. So that was more my concern there. And, I've, over the last 29, 30 years, I've been with people who have been in traumatic situations due to injury. I do the responsible thing. I call them an ambulance. That doesn't mean to say I go, you're an ambulance. I call them an ambulance. I call 911, 999, whatever it is, or whatever the number is here in the UK these days. But then I attend to them until the ambulance arrives and give them positive suggestions, creating what you might call positive projections about them healing. And I remember before I moved to this house here, when I lived in Staines, it was Christmas Eve. I was walking down the road, and I saw a guy, and he's on his push bike, and his bike went one way, he went the other way, and it was very, very, very icy. It was very, very slippy. I went over to him and said, "Are you okay, mate?" He said, "No, I think I broke my ankle." I said, "Well, I'll give you that idea." And he said, "Because look, my ankle does this." We're like, okay, yep, let's call you, get you an ambulance or whatever. But then, he's sitting in the ice. So obviously he can't stand up, I can't move him anywhere. And I just give him suggestions. You're comfortable. You're calm. You're warm. And you can heal yourself. And just bombarded his unconscious mind with those suggestions, which is creating internal representations, creates projections, create perception. And, there's a couple came along and they said, I mean, the guy was a lovely guy. He's sitting there with his arse in the ice. It was a freezing cold day. And this couple come along and go like, "Are you okay?" He goes like, "Yeah, of course I am. I like sitting with my arse in the ice." Which I thought was funny, They go, "Why are you doing that?" He goes, "Because I broke my ankle." "Really? What gives you that idea?" Because I can do this with it. And he's got these boots on, his foot's flapping around like crazy. And there's a guy who's about to go, "Oh, that must," I go, "Thank you." Walk away. And then the ambulance eventually show up because they got lost. They couldn't find us. And they said, "What's the problem?" He said, "I think I broke my ankle." "What gives you that idea?" "Because my foot's flopping around in my boot." "Okay, we'll go and get some Entonox." And the guy goes, "What's Entonox?" He goes, "Oh, it's anesthesia for the pain." He goes, "I'm not in any pain." He said, "Oh, but you will be when we take your boot off." Anyway, we do all that kind of stuff. His phone had died, and he was going off to see his son. So I said, "Look, use my phone. Call your son. Tell him, tell him where you are, and everything's okay. We got your bike stored away, so it's safe. It's not going to get stolen." And so a couple of days later, he phones me up. I think it was Boxing Day, and he was still in hospital. And he'd had to have surgery. He'd had screws, whatever. And he said, "I can't believe it. They keep telling me, here's your painkillers." And he said, "I don't need any." They go like, "Why not?" He said, "Because I'm not in any pain." And they kept going like, "Well, you should be." He goes, "But I'm not." Okay, that's fine. Then he said, "I think you're some kind of angel. Can I, when I get out of hospital, can I take you to the pub in Staines and buy you a couple of beers?" And I thought, well, yeah, maybe I'm a fallen angel, possibly. But that's to do with projection. And then your perception is your expectation. Great books. Thank you. Post-op pituitary tumor and brain surgery. I think this is possibly still. I don't know if this is still Tara. Okay, so I don't know if this is Tara. The person post-op pituitary tumor. Yeah, please just contact us, contact Sally, and we've got some ideas around that. A child born with an illness is a parent projection, correct? I don't know who that's from either. There's a whole series. It gets very complex here. Though this isn't me. This was in the early days of timeline therapy, when I first got into timeline therapy, and there was a timeline therapy journal. There was somebody wrote an article, which was a couple that had been born with a baby with respiratory disease. And they've been told that the baby got a 50-50 chance of living. It would either 50-50 chance die, 50-50 chance get well, and there was no treatment. So this timeline therapy master practitioner, I mean, this isn't my client, by the way. This is and also not my student. It's be one of the late Tad James's students. Worked with the parents, with the baby there, present, and work with the parents around releasing all the negative emotions around having a baby with a potentially fatal respiratory problem, and also worked with when did the parents decide to have a baby with respiratory problems and for what purpose. Now, come on, that's not going to be the first question you ask when the person walks through the door. You're going to have to get a lot of rapport first before then, and remove the limiting decision. The baby got well. Now, I've also said to you, it's a 50-50 chance whether the baby would get well or not. So then it's down to your projection, your perception as to what actually created a result there. And the most important thing is the baby got well and lived, right? Jerry, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, last stage. I was told to go home and wind up my life. It took me about an hour. Okay, Jerry, I think you've probably put this in the comments anyway, so that people would see it. I'm gonna read it out anyway. I hope that's okay with you, because I think it's really important for what we're talking about. And thank you so much for sharing this, because I've got so many examples of this. And it's when I talk about it, it's so contentious that I people just shoot me down and call me like all kinds of snake oil salesperson and whatever it may be. This is in your words. So Jerry, I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, last stage pre-death. Gave me 3 to 6 months to live. There was no treatment offered. Was told to go home and wind up my life. 2005. It took me about an hour and then found myself thinking I wasn't having it. Completely decided. Didn't think about any further from there. At my 3-month follow-up appointment, the consultant told me they were unable to find the tumors or signs on the scans. He was kind, said it happens sometimes, spontaneous remission. Jerry, again, the body isn't what it seems. Jerry, thanks so much for sharing that. That is that is great, and I've got so many examples of that personally, it's interesting that it was a spontaneous remission that got Deepak Chopra interested in looking at Ayurvedic medicine. He was an oncologist, I think in New York, and he had a client that got terminal cancer, and then the cancer just disappeared. Spontaneous remission, Jerry, as you quite rightly say. And so he'd never experienced that before. So he went out to his tribe, I guess, his community, and said, "Has anybody else experienced one of their patients having spontaneous remission from terminal cancer?" And they all went, "Yeah." He said, "Well," and then Chopra said, "Well, what is it? Is it like 1 in a million?" "Oh no, way more common than that." 1 in 100,000? No, way more common than that. 1 in 10,000? No, way more common than that. 1 in 1,000? No, way more common than that. So Chopra asked the question, he said, "Well, how come we're not researching spontaneous remissions?" And the community came back and said, "Because they're statistically insignificant." To which then Deepak Chopra quite rightly said, "Not for the person that has the spontaneous remission," right? Which is what set him down his path. And I've got a lot of respect for Deepak Chopra. I love his work. Annabelle, is the COVID pandemic a group projection? Annabelle, are you wanting me to get shut down or what? COVID is an interesting one, because it doesn't follow any previously expected paths of development. Well, I think here's the thing with COVID. I think it was an attempt at a group projection. I won't go any further than that. And some people accepted the projection and made it come true, and some people didn't accept the projection and didn't make it come true. You can read between the lines on that as much as you want to, and I don't think we're necessarily done with that this particular point in time. I think the most important thing is that no matter what comes down the line, we are able to project remaining well and healthy on ourselves, regardless of what else other people are experiencing. Chris, interesting projection for life expectancy on going into retirement care home is on average 2 years versus 6 years for those with dementia. Yeah, that Chris, I don't know which Chris that is. I don't know if it's Chris Hallett or another Chris. Yeah, you know, it's an interesting thing, and I think this was I can't actually remember which book this was in. People that have what we might call a cognitive, let's call it I don't really know what I want to call it. As in their cognition is not the same as the norm. That don't have a concept, for instance, of the existence of cancer. Don't get it. Very high correlation of that, which would be, in alignment with the case of the lady with the brain cancer. The brain cancer was debunked and she was sent home, but they didn't actually tell her go home to die. They just told her to go home, so she thought it was done. Whereas the doctors expected her to have 3 months to live, and she was still alive 10 years later because she didn't have an expectation. And this is something that's very much in Suggestible You, very much in sorcery as well, as in you put in this expectation that somebody's going to live, or you put in an expectation that somebody's going to die, or somebody just doesn't have an expectation. Then they make their expectation come true, or lack of an expectation, if you like, which is a total example of perception is projection, a projection on the body, which I think probably this session is probably the one that's the most contentious. Maybe, I don't know. That might be just my projection. But I find a lot of people go like, totally got cause and effect, totally got perception is projection, whatever, and I've got this in my body. And your body is the thing that's the closest to you. And you go, I get perception is projection with other people, I get cause and effect with other things, etc., but not with my body, which I find quite curious. Phil Atkinson, how about using this approach to reshape a body physically, getting fitter, healthier, and more energized? What protocol would you follow? Phil, I think you might actually know this person. When you did your practitioner training with me, which was a very long time ago, mate, I think like 1993 and 1994, there was a guy there called Brad Meyer. And Brad had this idea that what he could do was just visualize that he was working out and his body would follow suit. And it did. So, yeah, I think, we talked about body dysmorphia earlier with things like anorexia. Another student of mine, a friend of mine, Diane Udale, she had or was doing body dysmorphia 2. I'm not talking out of turn because she's gone quite public with that. And that's what got her into bodybuilding. And a lot of people in bodybuilding have that kind of thing. They look in the mirror and they don't see their muscular structure. So, which is why they then start doing steroids and all that kind of stuff to get bigger and bigger and bigger, because they don't think they're big enough. So I think with everything physical, and it's very well proven, I think now, is that visualizing where you want to be and how you want your body to be. I'm not saying that. I'm not talking like The Secret, as in, visualize you're thin and eat pie and chips every night, then you're going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Somebody wants to do a test on that, they can do. Please prove me wrong. That'd be fun, wouldn't it? Pie and chips every night, and I've got 2% body fat, and I'm ripped like crazy, and I'm not doing any steroids or anything. That would be an interesting study. I'm not going to do it, by the way. But if anybody here would like to do that, then that would be good. Please let me know the results. And then also, Phil, read the cancer stuff. You seem to suggest create a healthy ID and live towards pulling that towards you. Yeah, definitely. And we could do an entire masterclass series of masterclasses just on the application of mental, emotional well-being with physical well-being. And it would go beyond 10 sessions and would be even more controversial than this one. But yes, essentially, Phil, yeah. And negative emotions, limiting beliefs, misaligned values, and our internal representation have a huge impact on our physical body. I remember working with a lady years and years and years ago. She'd been given like 6 months to live, and I did a breakthrough session with her. And my final thing is always, can you get an internal representation of your body in perfect health? And she said no. So I thought, I must have missed something. I didn't, but I've been very thorough, which I always am. But her number one life value was longevity. And I checked it out, and it came out to be 100% towards. But then I just asked her the question, what does longevity mean to you? And she burst into tears. I thought, okay, well, that's a sign that there's something else to work on. And she said, when you asked me what does longevity mean to me, she said, I saw myself on my deathbed with all my children around me in hospital. And so we used Tomalin therapy and HUNA to heal that up. And it was only a couple of years ago that her son actually came to one of my intro sessions and said, I'm so-and-so's son. And I went, oh, right, yeah. And he said, yeah, you work with my mum because she'd been given 3 to 6 months to live. I think she got bone cancer, if I remember rightly. And he said she lived healthily for another 15 years and then passed away of natural causes just a year ago. I thought I'd come along and see you because I was interested in what you were doing, and I just wanted you to know that, And with somebody given life expectancy of 3 months. To try and live 10, 15 years is a miracle. I worked with somebody else who was doing pancreatic cancer, and she was literally sent home with weeks to live. And she lived 18 months, passed away quietly, but in those 18 months, she managed to sort all of her finances out so that she could look after her sons. Now, obviously, you know, I wanted her to live for longer than that. I've just realized my battery's about to go on me. Let me just... No, obviously, I wanted her to live significantly longer than that. But then with medical science, they say you've got weeks to live, and then the person lives 18 months healthily. That's a miracle. I actually don't believe that anybody dies earlier than they're meant to. Okay. There is a belief that our higher self chooses how we will live and the suffering we will experience. How does projection play in this? Well, it's an interesting belief. And also the perception of suffering. I have a different idea about the higher self, which again would be an entire other masterclass, series of masterclasses just on the higher self. Perception is projection holds true at the level of higher self. In my perception, my projection. And your higher self is perfect. So you are perfect. You always have been perfect. You're perfect now. You always will be perfect. No matter what you've done, no matter where you are. And therefore, if you were to develop life-threatening disease in the physical, your higher self would perceive that as perfect. Yeah, that's my perception on that. So the previous question is from an iPhone user. Okay. Lindsay, if we can project wellness and health, why does our body age? You know, I think there's a really interesting thing here, Lindsay. So I think it's a good question. Let me see. I can't actually see the book in my library at the moment. It's Deepak Chopra's book, Timeless Mind, Ageless Body. But in that book, he basically says that our body wouldn't begin to show signs of wear and tear until it had been well used for 125 years. So he says that it's very unusual for somebody to know someone that died of old age, as in wearing out. What people die of is what's become known as age-related dis-ease. but it's not actually wearing out. So he actually says it'd be quite normal for somebody to live to be at least 125. And there's pictures in his book, and I can't see at the moment in my health and section. And they're all they're male, female. They're all athletes, and they're all over 100 years old. So, and then again, talking about that, the oldest people in the world, the people who hold the world record for being the oldest people in the world in current history, don't know how old they are. They don't know when they were born because there was no records, so they have no expectation as to how their body is meant to be. What part does nature play in our projection? This is from Lindsay again. Nature is your projection. So it's not like nature makes your projection. Nature is your projection. So, some people go, well, I was thinking about this today. Here's an interesting one. There actually, at the moment, is a global CO2 shortage, which is why your fizzy drinks aren't as fizzy as they used to be, because there is a shortage of CO2 on the planet at the moment. But then from a climate point of view, apparently there's too much CO2 on the planet. Which one is right? Which one is wrong? Neither. They're models. But I do think that's quite an interesting thing. And I've had a lot of people here in the UK say, I think global warming's fantastic because at least now we're getting some decent weather. But then, there are other people that have a different opinion on that. And it is an opinion, by the way, is your perception and it's your projection. None of them are right. None of them are wrong. None of them are good. None of them are bad. Just whether you make them work for you. And that's what this entire masterclass has all been about. Well, we're at an hour and 10. This is the longest one we've ever done. So we're going to do a final one, wrap up next week, next Wednesday. I'm putting together a perceptions projection cheat sheet before then, which all of you who've registered for this will get sent, which is like a one-page thing, as in, okay, what do I do with my projections? How do I work this whole thing out with everything that we've done? So we'll go through that. We'll have a final Q&A, and then you already said you want to do more of these. Was this useful today? By the way, just give me a thumbs up. This was useful. Yay! Good. I've loved it, and I'm going to have some ideas as to what the next masterclass will be for the community. Because I really feel like we've built some momentum up with this. and all coming together, and had these so many people on Zooms and people watching it as well, and then people in the group. That I want to keep the momentum going. So I'm going to think about what we could do for the next topic, next theme for the masterclass. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it into I've got 2 ideas. And I'm going to put them into the group. I'll put them up to my profile and do the same thing that I did before. Whereas before you just went in, I'm going to give you 2 choices. And you can't go for both, perceivers out there. Like, we'll do both eventually, but you just got to pick one. Which do you want next? And I'm going to give you 2 words, and you go 1 word if you want one of them, 1 word, and we eventually will do both. But then the one that gets the most votes, if you like, on my profile and in the group will be the one that we do next. And I've loved doing this. I've learned so much from it, and I've loved interacting with you guys all so much. So I want to keep this community, this whole energy going. So let's see. We're going to do another one, and we're going to keep doing it. It's just yay. It's just which one we choose to do next. Okay. So thanks for joining me. Have a great evening, or morning, or wherever you might be in the world. And also, if you're watching this on the recording rather than live, guys who are here with me live, thank you so much for joining me live. This really gives me the energy to do this. And the interaction with the questions and all that kind of stuff is great. So we will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. So it's over and out from me. 73s. Ciao.